Our scripture reading this morning comes from the 26th chapter of 1 Samuel, 26, 21. And it sounds like a short passage, and it is, that we're reading. But I want you to go there to 21, 26, 21. In the bulletin it says 1, but it's actually 21. And this is Saul talking. Then Saul said, I have sinned. Return my son David, for I will not harm you again, because my life was precious in your sight. This day, behold, I have played the fool. I have committed a serious error. Go over to 2 Timothy. And we're going to read 4:7. Actually, we'll read a little bit more of that. 1 Timothy, or 2 Timothy. I had my place fixed, and then I pulled my piece of paper out. Start at the 6th verse. 2 Timothy 4, 6 and 7. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the course. I have kept the faith. We all leave behind what we call an epitaph. And I've preached on this a few times. I'm going to use a few things that I've said on other occasions. But one way or the other, we leave an epitaph. Sometimes, sometimes we leave it chiseled on a tombstone. But a lot of times we leave it chiseled on the hearts of people. Now, epitaph is not a commonly used word by any means of the word. You don't hear that every day. But we all leave one. What an epitaph is a brief summary of our life's work. One of the most, many times I've said this, one of the most beautiful places in the country is where Thomas Jefferson is buried. And it's an awesome place. It's Charlottesville, Virginia. You know, if you had to list the great presidents, he would be right up there with the trio. We're talking about Jefferson and Lincoln and Washington. But what is interesting about him is not what he is on his grave. It's not what is on the grave that is important and is outstanding. It's what is left off of that gravestone. You see, he doesn't have listed that he was the President of the United States from 1801 to 1809. What he does have on there is that he's the author of the Declaration of Independence. The Virginia statue of religion, religious freedom, that is. And he's the father of the University of Virginia. He doesn't put on there that he was the president. He put on his stone, what he wanted on his stone, what was most important to him. Now, y'all know that most often we see tombstones, we see a date they were born and a date they died. we see their name. Now, occasionally you see now they're putting grandchildren and children on the back of the, so you know who is family members. I know Mama had hers fixed that way. I don't know when she did it, but at some point along she put our names on the back. That hasn't been the way it's always been. In the past, there was a lot of, a gravestone was decorated, and a lot of information was put on the gravestone. Sometimes it described the location of the person, what kind of job he had, or a situation in his life. Let me tell you a few. I've read these before, I think, in the years past. There was a dentist in Yorkshire, England. And that dentist, it says, view this grave with gravity. He's filling his last cavity. And then there was another one, there's a legal profession, provides some commentary on the legal profession. It says, God works wonders now and then. He, though a lawyer, was an honest man. And then there's this one from Greenwood, New York. It's in a little sneak, sneaks in some advertising. Here lies Jane Smith, wife of Thomas Smith, marble cutter. This monument was erected by her husband as a tribute to her memory and as a specimen of his work. Monuments of this same type or style are $350. And then in Kittery, Maine, there's a glimpse of an unhappy family. It says, we can but mourn his loss. Though wretched was his life, death took him from the cross, erected by his wife. And one of the most, probably the saddest of all, comes from Manchester, England, where it said, here lies a man who did no good. And if he had lived, he never would. Where he's gone or how he fares, nobody knows and nobody cares. That's pretty devastating. Epitaphs. By our lives, we write them. We write our own epitaphs. Now, the biblical story I read to you this morning, I want you to consider two men who were born with the same name. The name of Saul. Interestingly, they were from the same tribe. Benjamin. Small tribe. One occurs near the front end of the Old Testament. The other one fills the pages of the New Testament. But both of them were named Saul, and both of them were had extraordinary gifts of leadership. And each one of them left an indelible mark placed on the world. The first Saul, who was over 1,000 years before the second Saul, performed the almost impossible task of welding together the Hebrew people. All these tribes that made up the Hebrews. He was not a king in the sense that we know of a king. He did not wear a king's crown or a diadem. He didn't wear that. He didn't have all the things that you know that a modern king in a sense was or had. But he was more of a security officer. He protected the vulnerable people, the Hebrews or the children of Israel from their enemies. He had a lot of charisma. He emerged from the record as you might say, a diamond in the rough. He was bold, he was brave, he was impatient, he was impulsive. And again, I say he was not a king in the modern sense of the word, because he didn't wear a crown. He had no robe on. Saul was more of a, you might call, a guerrilla fighter. He who would raid, he would raid his enemies, and he would secure his borders. In addition, he was a warrior, but he had one celebrated weakness. When a young man by the name of David came into his presence, the people were running around saying, Saul slay his 1,000, David slay 10,000. Now it got under his skin. I mean, he's the head of the country, and it just sent him in rage. Madness would take him over. He just could not. He would become homicidal. He wanted to kill this young man. But shortly before Saul looked back with all that, he looked at all of his rage and his all-consuming envy and his attempt to murder this rival, he confessed, I have done wrong. I will no more do you harm. I have played the fool. Mark down that epitaph. That is his epitaph. His greatness was forfeited by his envy and his desire to his envy. He was so envious of this young man that only he could summarize his life in the end was, I played the fool. The second Saul was a man by the name, he came from Saul, or known as Saul of Tarsus. He came into the church when the church was only a little fledgling group of believers, and it was actually just a sect of Judaism, because they still went to the temple. They had not pulled out of that. But because of his intellectual and inspirational genius, by the time of his death, he had transformed this fledgling Christian group into a mighty force. That all occurred, and for the last 2,000 years, the world has been different. Because see, God chose Paul for a good reason. Paul he was a theologian for one, but he could bring together what we believe and how we believe it and how we should pursue it through the ages. What he did stretched across the Roman Empire, and today it is stretching across the whole wide world. And how did it move and how did it go? It went from a few letters to word of mouth. Saul became Paul and had all the tools of greatness. He had a rich education in the faith of his fathers. He had Roman citizenship. He had Greek culture. He could have been an honored and brilliant teacher in the Jewish church. He could have had all the wealth. He could have had all the renown that he could have possibly received. But he also had a deep desire to follow God's will. To follow God's will and desire to do God's will. And on the Damascus Road, Paul was knocked to his knees, blinded. And that his whole life changed. I would imagine a lot of his colleagues walked up to him and said, or shook their head as he passed by or around, and they said, "Oh, what a pity. What a pity that this great mind has gone over to this sect, to these crazy people they call themselves the Way, the Christians. What a waste of talent." And I've heard that so many times about ministers. Some of the most brilliant people I've ever known, especially systematic theologians. Now, it's one thing to be a biblical theologian, but to be a systematic theologian is a whole nother ballgame. And everyone I've ever known was either a math major or a PhD in math, or a physicist, or a chemist. They took their skills and they enhanced them. But I've heard a lot of people say that preachers, it's a pity. That man had so much skill. He could have been, he's an engineer, he's this, he's that. He's a brilliant accountant, and he has chosen to go into the ministry. But when it came to the end of his career, he could say with personal fulfillment, and that's what life is all about, doing what you think God wants you to do and being in God's hands. Listen to his epitaph. "I have fought the good fight. I have kept the faith." Two songs, two epitaphs. One says, "I have played the fool." The other one says, "I have kept the faith." What these words remind me of is that in the end, we are going to summarize our lives. Every single one of us. And in fact, we're writing that story right now every single day. Every day that passes, we are determining that great summing up. Every night there is that within us that says, either I have played the fool today, or I have kept the faith. You say it all the time. I do, myself. I do some crazy things. And I say to some people something I shouldn't have said in the heat of the moment. I should have shut my mouth. But I'll say it anyway. And then I'll beat myself up all night long. I played the fool today. But then there are those days I might help somebody. Probably to some degree, I would imagine this is true in all of our lives, and your life as well as mine. Few of us are ever going to achieve the status of or be as bad as Saul of Israel, King Saul. And few of us are ever going to reach the status of being of the spiritual status of a Saul of Tarsus. But most of us can say, at the end of the day, Lord, thank you for letting me help that person. That person who, like the other day, that drove up to the gas station, and I saw him drive up, and is at Kroger, and she got out and she said, if I didn't ask, I wouldn't. I know it's the only way you can get something is to ask. Can you give us some gas? Well, I'm just filling mine up. It just seems like every time I drive up at the Kroger, that's the same story. And so I said, yeah, let me give you some gas. I won't give you money. I did want to give her money, but I filled the car up. And the moment I got through with that, she said, well, I'm pregnant and I'm hungry. This is the change I have. And I said, she said, do you have any more change I can have? And I said, well, here, I gave her about $1.50 the change I had. Every life needs constant re-examination. I mean, every one of us. If you get where you're going, where will you be? If you achieve what you were trying to achieve, what would it mean? It's not what you're dreaming about or the intention of your whatever you're doing. It's what you're actually doing that determines your life. You know, I hear people all the time say, I'm thinking I want to do this, and you see college students, I want to do this, I want to be this. Well, then if you're going to be that, start working towards that. If you want to talk about predestination, that's the kind of predestination I can believe. We put ourselves in a position to achieve certain things. You know, if we don't reach a destination tomorrow, we must start it today and work at it every single day. This is a time of checking our perspective. It's not a question of success or failure, but it's what is going on inside. Is it lust? Is it jealousy? Is it greed? These are the pitfalls. These are the pitfalls that eat us away and eat our hearts and our souls. It's the pitfall of a Saul who says, I played the fool. Each of us authors his own story. I mean, you're writing your book right now. It could be one of honor, it could be purity, it could be integrity, it could be compassion. It can include forgiveness for our foolish and foolish ways of doing, and refresh our lives. Come unto me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. All of us are playing the fool at some time along the way. You're writing your epitaph. Day by day you author. Day by day you write it on somebody else's heart. Day by day somebody is going to sum up your life when you pass away. That's what you're going to be known by. Keep the faith. And I'll say it like we used to say in some of the young people in the 60s said, right on. Well, I'm going to say right on, but put it in words. Right. Not R-I-G-H-T. Right on. Write your epitaph. Start preparing your epitaph. What you want people to think of you. How you want them to think of you. We're going to open the doors of the church for you to make a decision about how you're going to start today writing your epitaph. How you